So I wanted to welcome everyone to the EIF, or Earp It Forward, Earp Your Community panel. How many of you guys were at our Lexicon panel? Woo! I'm not going to scream because I have a mic. It's a bad idea. So it's going to be a little bit the same and a little bit different. We're going to kind of keep the inspirational portion, but then also have a discussion of a practical approach to sort of organizing an event in the fandom. So before we start our introductions, what we wanted to do is engage you guys in a thought exercise. Those of you who are just sitting down, please grab donuts. There are vegan donuts with nut milk. They're not gluten-free, they're not nut-free, but please grab a donut. So a thought exercise for you guys. So International Coastal Cleanup Day is coming up on September 21st, Can you not hear me? You can hear me. 2019. So what I want you guys to do is think about what you think it would take to get an event set up, a group event set up in your neighborhood. Think about the processes, the challenges, and hopefully by the end of our panel, we will have inspired you to create an event, and we'll have shared some knowledge that will help you actually get creating the event, and then hopefully you'll have some questions for us about how to make that event a reality. Sorry, I'm super stuttery. I've already done this once today, so I apologize. At the end, we will have some time for questions, and I just wanted to say we're actually going to give out some Wynonna Earp, and actually, it looks like Carmilla swag.
Yep.
Seriously, dude, Carmilla at a Wynonna Earp con? It looks like there's only one piece of Carmilla swag, though. No. Think of your question, but we do have actually some really awesome super special swag. So Melanie Scrofano actually did a lovely doodle for us. This was a piece of art, original art by Melanie Scrofano.
Oh my God.
So don't be shy. We also have a Wynonna Earp bandana, and this, hopefully I won't do it upside down. This lovely item. I know. Who's come for that? Nice. Nicely done. So my name is Maggie, because I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. Sorry about that, and I'm your moderator. And we're just going to go down and introduce ourselves. So go ahead, Kristen.
My name is Kristen. I am the founder of Earp It Forward and a partner on Earp Your Community. My pronouns are she, her.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I work with Kristen on Earp It Forward, and I'm the other creator of Earp Your Community. My pronouns are he, she, her, excuse me. And I also run the Bayhot Earp Your Community group.
Hi, my name is Geffen. My pronouns are she, her, and I run the Earp Your Community LA account, so at LA Earpers.
Hi, I'm Kristen. My handle is Gravery. My pronouns are she, her, and I've organized a few Earp Your Community events in New York City.
Gravery, could you tell us how you got your Twitter handle?
It is a soccer nickname because I play defense and I put them in the Gravery.
I totally thought that was worth it. Just wanted to say that. All right. So who or what inspired you to volunteer is our first question.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. I remember when we were starting to discuss this panel, I realized that my first experiences volunteering weren't in like an official volunteering capacity. When I was a kid, I would spend, I was really into school, kind of like a nerdy kid. And I used to spend summers, I would go and help out my teachers, get ready for the upcoming school year. And I think that that's something, I was trying to think about why that was something that I wanted to do as a kid during my summers. And I think that really came from an example that was set, especially for my mom, but just like throughout my family and the people that I knew, that the way that you, that it's worthwhile of your time to give back to especially people that you care about or people that you feel like have given you something. So I felt like I was getting a lot from my educators, and that was sort of my way as a kid of saying like, oh, I feel like this is a worthwhile thing of my time to give back. That's kind of how I got into it.
So I'm going to kind of preface my answer first. So doing a panel like this is scary, but sometimes you have to do what scares you, like what Waverly said. And the other thing is Wynonna has taught us that you can still be strong and vulnerable. So I'm going to be vulnerable right now. probably throughout the panel, but I have a processing disorder that affects the way I process information, so it's kind of hard to organize thoughts and answer questions, and I stumble on words all the time and just kind of get lost in my head, and it really sucks to have that feeling, to feel lost in your head. And then I kind of felt like lost in my own life because I was a really shy, awkward kid, and I didn't fit in. So similar to Geffen, my teachers are kind of like this like huge part of my life, and they gave a lot of support and encouragement. It was really, really nice to feel understood and cared for, and all that kindness like changes lives. Like teachers are kind of like superheroes, and just seeing that and how much they helped, I kind of wanted to echo that. I have one quick story. In 4th grade, we got a kindergarten reading buddy. And the reading buddy I got, she was on the autism spectrum. So while she struggled like reading her book, you could tell she was like really, really into it. So that was like super cool. And I didn't really realize then, but my teachers saw something in me where they just knew, like they saw that I was patient and kind and non-judgmental, and that's pretty much what I looked for in other people, especially someone that's like super shy. And that wasn't really volunteering, but the experience stuck with me. It made me realize how much I wanted to help others. I just wanted to help people, be there for someone struggling, support the underdog, and because we're all really awesome people, but even if we struggle, I am inspired by the many helpers, like my teachers, the compassionate humans, and that spread love and kindness.
For me, my parents were a really great example of how they cared for others. And my mom was a teacher, and my dad always donated blood for like 30 years. So they were always quietly giving back in different ways that I really admired. And I was away at grad school in 2012 when Hurricane Sandy hit, and thankfully my parents were fine. They were just without power for 11 days, but it really devastated a lot of areas of New York City. So my first volunteering project when I was home from grad school on winter break was to work with Occupy Sandy and work on some of the houses in some of the neighborhoods like Brighton Beach, and kind of get them back on their feet again.
So for me, one of my earliest memories and one of my most vivid memories is actually almost as a toddler going with my grandparents to volunteer at a local senior center and serve breakfast. And at the time I was like 3 or 4. My job was to entertain people and look cute, and I was very, very good at it. But it didn't feel like volunteering, it didn't feel like work. It was just this really special thing I got to do with my grandfather, who was and still is my absolute favorite person in the world. And he died when I was 12, and I think that relationship I wanted to live a life that he could be proud of. I wanted to be that person that would have made his eyes sparkle. You know, I wanted to be his ideal. But there's another thing that happened in my life. About 2-3 years before he died, I was actually diagnosed with leukemia. And I was in treatment for about 3 years. And I didn't really process the sort of emotional part of that until I was done, till like right before he died. And in doing that, the thing I internalized really quickly was that my sort of natural fate was not to live past 9, that I wouldn't even be here if not for the intervention of doctors and science to even impact the world. And so it became really important to me that my presence in this world mattered, and that I used that time wisely, and that it was a force for good, because I wasn't going to be here, so it should matter that I am. And I think that also inspired me. I worked in politics right after grad school, and that's what I think kind of drove me, because I wanted to make a difference and an impact in the world. And working in politics was wonderful, but it burnt me out. I learned in politics about collective action and the power of a community, but when I was done, I was exhausted. And so I stopped doing any kind of community work for a long, long time. And then I found the Earpers. And the Earpers just kind of were this group of people that led with their heart, that wanted to be the best people that they could be. And that same feeling of wanting to impact the world I saw in this community, and it reminded me why this was important to me in the first place. And it reignited that sort of passion that I had. And so when you ask me that question today, the question is, you guys all inspire me to keep volunteering and to keep remembering why it's important for us to be a part of our communities.
Thanks, guys. Do you guys want to hear odd 6 degrees of separation? I actually worked with Sarah's physician.
Yeah.
Oddly.
You got yelled at by her.
Yes, actually, I got yelled at by her. That is correct. That is 100% correct. Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. But on to the questions, more formal stuff. So, Kristen, you're the origin of Earp It Forward. So can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of Earp It Forward and Earp Your Community and how it came to being?
Sure. So it's kind of been something that's grown over several years. When I was in college, things kind of just started to take shape and sprout, and the idea sprouted. I still hadn't outgrown my shyness. In fact, I had like social anxiety, and I was still awkward, but I really wanted to make connections in college, so I did something that took me out of my comfort zone and went to this leadership camp. And at this camp, one of the core pieces of it was to create an action plan and bring it back to campus. So this is where I started to outline a Pay It Forward student organization. And then 2 years later, I was lucky enough to use this project in my capstone course and bring it to life as a official student organization. And where the focus was just doing like kindness projects, like little things like handing out compliments, and we just had a few small projects, but this student organization served as the foundation for Earp It Forward. So several years later, again, in 2016, I started watching Wynonna Earp. And I saw that there was so many people that had this shared passion of kindness. Wynonna is such a unique community. Everyone involved is so special and so giving, and I have never felt more welcomed and safe with a group of people. It's been completely life-changing. And Earpers are just so kind and generous in so many ways. They do giveaways, and they send comics to people in countries that don't have access to the comic books, just providing words of support and encouragement when people are going through a tough time. And the whole Wynonna Earp world, the cast, the writers, the crew, are so kind as well. So I realized this was the perfect community to finally have a large-scale Pay It Forward project. And so Earp It Forward came to be. And I saw this culture of kindness and so many opportunities to put these things into action. I really felt that this project had the power, or this fandom had the power to change the world. And Earp It Forward has always been about helping and supporting people to make their own dreams come true. So there were so many, and there's so many ideas out there. After helping a few people with their own projects, I realized to really have Earp It Forward reach its full potential and succeed in its mission, actualize the ideals, I needed help. I needed a team. So I created this group chat called the Kindness Warriors. And it's a group of people with similar ideals who would help get projects off the ground, spreading kindness, and that's how I met Sarah. Her energy and enthusiasm to help provided the momentum to help actualize the service meetup aspect of Earp It Forward and start Earp Your Community in June 2018.
Yeah, and so before I get into how I got started, I do just want to say, like, I don't think it's said enough how much tenacity and perseverance it really takes to create something like Earp It Forward. So I just want to say, like, I'm always in awe of what Kristen does, and I'm forever grateful that she let me be a part of it, because it's been the best part. Next to being a murder tree, it's been the best part of being an Earper.
You only say that because Meredith's in the audience.
Well, and Allison.
And Allison, sorry, my bad.
So I've been a fan of Wynonna Earp since the beginning, but I wasn't active in the fandom until about halfway through season 2, because I didn't have Twitter. And I had the really smart idea in 2016, or whenever, to get a Twitter account and follow the news. And that was a terrible, terrible, terrible idea.
Bad year.
But it also introduced me to Earpers. So in the end, it worked out. But when I entered the fandom and I started like really engaging, I happened to be in kind of one of the lowest places of my life. I had had a lot of like professional setbacks, and at that time, my identity and my self-worth was a little bit too wrapped up in my job. And so it kind of just ran through sort of already kind of tenuous self-confidence that I had, and kind of just, what I say is, like, when I entered the Wynonna Earp fandom, I was the closest I've ever been to just giving up on myself and not fighting for what I wanted. But I just happened to write some stuff, and people all of a sudden started supporting me. I got support from the cast when I would tweet things about Wynonna Earp, and it started to build that confidence, and I just felt all this kindness. I listened to interviews, and particularly with Dom and Kat talking about their struggles, and one really impactful thing was Dom's story about getting her job on Wynonna Earp, because it just nudged me out of my toxic headspace and got me to kind of start pulling back these things I felt about myself that I was losing. And I was just so overcome with gratitude for this community that I wanted to give back, and I wanted to give back in a way that wasn't Twitter, because Twitter is very overwhelming for me. It can be an anxiety trigger, and I wanted to do something that would offer other avenues to engage with the community. And so when I saw Kristen's tweet, I was like, that's where I need to be. I'm going to be in that group. And I think we both had this idea about a service meetup project because we knew that this community would jump on it and this community would help it be successful. And so I put it out into the group chat, and Kristen responded. And we just started talking about it back and forth and figuring out what that might look like, what it could be. And we launched it. And of course, Earpers responded, and they started doing their own events. And then the cast sort of saw it, and that was really cool. But really, it was the Earpers like taking this and running with it. And they made it this huge success in my eyes. It's really been like a joy to watch Earpers find new ways to give back and to do things that we never would have even thought of doing, and get us to the point where this project is of interest, that we can have an actual panel on it.
So you guys volunteer a lot. You create all these volunteer activities, and give a lot to the panel, to the audience, to the Earpers, to folks around you. Why is this volunteering so important to you? What is it that you guys get out of it?
I think for me, when you think about some of the bigger issues that we're dealing with today, volunteering is a way to kind of chip away at them and feel like you're making a difference, because on a small scale, it really does make a difference. It matters. Take, for example, single-use plastics. Like, how do you tackle an issue as big as that? And, going to a beach cleanup or going to a park cleanup, and you see, like, firsthand, oh, I'm picking up all these straws. Look at all these bottle caps. And you're keeping them out of the waterways. And, I think that kind of leads you to kind of see the problem firsthand and figure out ways to tackle it, and kind of leading into advocacy and speaking up for better laws around it.
I think Sarah touched on There was a word that Sarah brought up, and that's really meaningful to me. And I feel like volunteering is important to me as a way of showing gratitude for the things that I have, and coming from like a place of privilege. I think acknowledging and not taking for granted the things that you have in your life. So I think that kind of separate even from what I do with Earp Your Community, like another cause that's really important to me is like access to clean drinking water around the world, and that's something that I kind of was involved in through college as well, like organizations that work on systems related to that. So I think anything that I do, whether it's like local or having to do with like international development, all those things come from this place of like gratitude and wanting everybody to have access, kind of that equity of access to resources, for sure.
So for me, volunteering grounds me. It keeps me present. It connects me to my community. Even people I don't know, I feel a larger connection to them because I'm sort of giving myself roots in my community. I'm sort of extending who I consider my responsibility, I guess, in a sense. And for me, that's really important because it's very, very easy for me to get lost in my own head, kind of similar to what Kristen said, and just sort of be disconnected, and that's not a great way to live your life. I mean, it's so much more, your life feels so much bigger when you're connected to the things around you and when you feel a sense of place. It also keeps me present, and all of those things, going out there, connecting, being present in the moment, they're a great antidote to cynicism. That's the biggest thing for me, is that cynicism for me is super toxic, and it's easy to be cynical. It's an easy thing to do. It's really hard to be an idealist because you're putting yourself out there. But I find that living as an idealist is a much happier place. So for me, volunteering, giving back to people, meeting people, learning about them, it's like I recharge my batteries. I recharge my idealistic batteries so that I can face all the disappointments I might have, about the very complicated problems of the world. Just giving myself that time to remember what's possible, why it's important to know people, and kind of lift my own kind of spirits and things like that.
So I'm going to do a quick little answer to the question. Volunteering for me is a lot about like kindness, and I have like a little mantra that's kindness keeps me going. It kind of plays into like a mental health. Well, it definitely plays into a mental health aspect because it has helped me fight some serious demons with my own mental health, feeling incredibly hopeless, just being in a very dark place. And it gives me a sense of purpose and lets me know that I'm making a difference. And a core reason why Earp It Forward is even a thing and has persevered is these small acts of kindness throughout the process. And for me, that's like kind of what volunteering is all about is just like, is this feeling of all the kindness going around and that you're really doing something. And my own like, actually I'm done. I think I'm good.
Perfect. So Kristen brings up a good point, which is there are actually studies that show that compassion actually helps with dealing with anxiety and depression. And it's not just compassion through volunteering and helping others, but also compassion for yourself. And there are actually lots of studies that show that volunteering in general actually has benefits on mental health, well-being, perception of self-satisfaction and work satisfaction. So even if folks who work the same amount of hours, those who work extra hours by volunteering actually perceive their lives as better, and they see themselves as more fulfilled. So, thank you. So you guys volunteer. What's so special about volunteering in a group? Why make the effort to kind of create a group of people and actually have them volunteer together?
Touch on that a little bit. Yeah, so I actually kind of wanted to create like even before I came across the Earper community, I had kind of this desire to create a volunteer group as a way to regularly do it, and I just think it's a more joyful thing to volunteer as a group. I think I was kind of inspired to do so because a few years before I became involved in the Earper community. I don't know if anybody's heard of the YouTuber Hannah Hart. I wasn't super, I wasn't like, I didn't like watch all her videos or anything, but I did know that she had kind of created this thing called Have a Heart Day. And funnily enough, somebody who, so I'll just explain a little bit. It's just basically regular volunteer events. It was all throughout the country. I think different, or all throughout the United States, and different countries did this as well. And so I started volunteering regularly with that group. And it's also a very like queer inclusive environment. And I think that at the time I wasn't really sure what I was looking for in it. I just knew that it was something that was just a very like comforting, safe environment to be in, and also just knowing that we were doing something that was worthwhile. We would volunteer like once a month at a food bank. And funnily enough, when I came across, so like when I started getting involved in or like finding out about the Earper fandom, and I would go on Twitter and found out just like about, I would just see like Earp It Forward, Earp Your Community, and I realized that this would be like the perfect outlet for this thing that I kind of wanted to do that I had, tapered off. I'd stopped volunteering with that group and really wanted to get back into it again. And funnily enough, one of the first people that ended up following the account was somebody who I'd met through, who I knew previously, so I like reconnected with somebody. And I think like the reason that I was sort of seeking that out was just this idea that you can volunteer on your own, and it can be really a really meaningful thing to do on your own. But I think the idea of creating connections within a community, spreading that joy. I know that the most recent event that we did at a food bank, I know we got kind of reactions from the staff members who were pointing out, like we were sorting bread, and everybody.
I think you hit someone in the head, didn't you?
It got a little bit intense at times. There was
There may have been some target practice.
We were checking bread and throwing bread, and but I think we got a few of the staff members like came up to us and kind of pointed out just sort of the dynamic that we all had. Not everybody even knew each other that well, but that was kind of an example to me of what I had been seeking to create, which was just this environment where you're doing something meaningful and worthwhile, but if you do it as a group, then it becomes kind of the joy of it just sort of multiplies, and you're also building these connections based on that like shared purpose. So I think that was sort of what I was seeking without unknowingly, like years before, and that was sort of also why I had that drive to create Earp Your Community LA.
Can I add one thing? So when we all talked about what inspired us, a lot of us talked about like family members that we had that were like role models, or that took us and gave us this experience, and then we realized how important and how fulfilling that was. I think sometimes when you can do a group event, because not everybody has that. Not everybody has somebody in their life that can offer them that experience. But we can be that for each other. We talk about found family all the time. We can be those people for each other. And I don't necessarily mean like you're the organizer, therefore you're inspiring this group of people that you pull in. I'm actually inspired all the time by the people who sign up for my events. And there's nothing better than seeing like an Earper tweet about our events and talk about like, it's great that we went and we also went to a food bank and we like sorted the most grapefruits ever. She was super excited. But it's more like looking back and just seeing people now they're excited and they're inspired. And so I think we can be inspirations for each other, because not everybody's gonna necessarily have that to start, but they might wanna come and hang out with you because you're an Earper and you're pretty cool.
I absolutely agree with everything that Sarah said, and I think Geffen touched on something really important about finding that joy and connection with people and that sense of community when you're volunteering with a group. I've been volunteering for years on my own through this really great organization in New York called New York Cares, and they have projects, all sorts of projects in the 5 boroughs. And I'd been working on a soccer project with kids, and then there's also a really great Astoria Park project in Queens, which is kind of co-run with the Astoria Park Alliance. So when Earp Your Community came around, I was like, I've been doing this for a few years now. Like, it's a great project for groups. Like, why not like test the waters, see if there's an interest in people joining? And it turned out to be a really great event, and it brought like a richness to that like cleanup and hanging out afterwards, and the Story Park Alliance is like, you bringing more Earpers? Like, what's going on? So it's really makes a difference.
It's actually a really awesome way of leveraging the fandom too, for good. And Sarah, I believe actually you got a best friend from all of this too, right? Didn't you?
Yes, the person who was on our Lexicon panel, Zette, has a daughter. She's 3 years old, and she comes to all of our events, and she's cooler than anybody in the group. Definitely cooler
No
than
offense
me.
to any Earpers, just FYI.
She's basically our mascot, and she's just adorable, and she loves seeing me, and I love seeing her.
Awesome. So you guys have talked about how, volunteering and then volunteering in a group has kind of inspired you. But how has connecting through EIF and EYC sort of changed you as a person?
You go. So it's really hard to necessarily separate the two, like the Wynonna experience from Earp It Forward. So I have to start with the Wynonna experience. I'm going to go back a little bit to talking about when I was sick. Before I was diagnosed with leukemia, I was the kid that was at the family gatherings, putting on shows. I was the one that would sit next to you on the plane and just chatter at you for
Don't worry, she does that now too.
Well, geez.
I got a finger wag. That's awesome.
I can't believe that you're the one who's being called out more on this panel.
Geffen.
I'm just so relieved. That's all.
Anyway, so I was the one that would talk to you. I was brave and I was a cool kid, looking back at it, and I made people happy. I brought joy. People wanted to be around me, and then I got sick, and kids are really mean, and that impacted me a lot. I spent a lot of time by myself, and I lost that little girl. She just sort of disappeared, and I got a lot of positive traits from that too, empathy, all that kind of stuff, but I missed her, and I couldn't figure out how to get her back. And something I realized recently was that all of these things that I'm doing, I found her again. I was able to find this person, this really cool person, and get that back when I thought she was kind of gone forever. So that's what Wynonna Earp did for me, and that's really tied into Earp Your Community and Earp It Forward. Specifically about Earp It Forward, as I mentioned, when I first joined the fandom, I started writing, and people gave me a lot of encouragement, and that built a lot of self-confidence back, but I really struggled to translate that to other parts of my life. I really struggled to translate that confidence into that I as a person had anything to offer, that I was an interesting person to get to know, or anything like that. And organizing these events, seeing the response, feeling the sort of empowerment of it, it helped me bring some of that confidence I had as a writer into feeling more confident about who I was and what I had to offer the world. I was able to more fully embrace that little kid I found again, and it changed my life. Both of those things, in ways I just never even could have fathomed.
I can go.
We're all gonna fight.
Yes.
It's a very polite panel.
Yes, definitely.
Honorary Canadians. One of the things that the Earp community and fandom is called is fandom, like a family and fandom combined. So it really has been like a family. It's the most welcoming place I've ever encountered. It's such a safe place. You can be very open with people, and they're extremely understanding and empathetic, and it's a very special group, and it's allowed me to grow incredibly. There's been so much personal growth. I've met people, I've become more social. 10 years ago, coming to this event would have been absolutely terrifying. I probably would have hid in a corner somewhere.
It's not right now?
What?
It's not right now?
It's terrifying still. Oh yeah, it is very terrifying still. I got confused.
It's all right,
But it's helped me overcome my fears and come out of my comfort zone, and it's just really amazing how much Earp It Forward has changed my life. Wynonna Earp and Earp It Forward. It's just been an incredible experience.
I should add that you said a few years ago this would have been unthinkable. This was I mean, this was Maggie, but she had this idea and told me about it. She's the one that convinced me to do it. That's how much she's changed.
And dragged me into it as well.
Yeah, I dragged you into it. You were like, no.
I don't think so.
Like, very much no.
And then down the line.
and then we dragged it.
We don't say no anymore.
Yeah. We don't say no anymore.
That's it.
But yeah, that really, like what you said, really resonates with me because I think that idea of having a safe place to pursue things that you might not otherwise feel comfortable to pursue, like I wouldn't necessarily think to take on like an organizer or any kind of like leadership role, but I think that I saw like the potential of what like Earp Your Community, like I, obviously had thoughts in mind of wanting to create a volunteer group, but maybe something among my friends or something like that, like not necessarily trying to pursue things with a larger group of people. And I think that that having that safe place does empower you to pursue things that you go outside of your comfort zone and just try it because you are in a safe place and have a safe landing for it. So I think that I had seen enough evidence of that potential within the Earper community that it really did change my perspective on that.
And I kind of connect with Sarah on the fact that it's hard to separate Earp Your Community and Earp It Forward from the fandom. I would say Earp Your Community and Earp It Forward kind of gave me an outlet for some of the things I was already doing and kind of that sense of togetherness. But the fandom as a whole gave me a sense of community that I never had before. In college, like freshman year, I was in the LGBTQ student group, and it was not inclusive. It was kind of a hazing, bullying atmosphere, and I got my friends and pretty much got out, and I kind of lost hope in finding that sense of community again. I really didn't think I would. I had my friends and everything, but I was just always looking for it, and I found it through this fandom, and it's been a total blessing.
I'd also add that I was really lucky almost to come out late because I didn't come out until I met Earpers. I didn't even figure it out until later, but it took me about 4 years after that. I can't imagine having a more supportive group to do that with. They were really the ones that inspired me to take what I was doing online and connecting and tell my family. And I knew they were going to be supportive. My family is very supportive, but it was really having that community of people who understood what that might be like, because I felt awkward. I was already 30 when I figured it out, and so like it felt weird, and everybody was just so supportive, and that was a really big deal. I'm not sure I would have come out had it not been for Earpers.
Yeah, I had like the exact, excuse me, I had that exact same experience where it just had such a crazy impact on my life. It gave, like, Earpers are pretty much why I came up to my family, and they were really accepting as well. They're just so incredibly approachable. If you're ever afraid to like DM someone, don't be, because they'll most likely want to like help you. Actually, the person that designed the logo for Earp It Forward, I put out like a tweet like to DM me anything you want. The person, she's from Australia. She decided to tweet me. We got talking. I told her about Earp It Forward. She's like, "That's awesome!" And then she decided to make the logo and a bunch of other graphics. And that wouldn't have happened if she hadn't decided to DM me. So just Earpers are just incredibly approachable, whether online or at like meetups or Earp Your Community events. It doesn't feel like events you did in like school and stuff like that, where you're like, I mean, yes. You feel more comfortable approaching people. I don't know how many people have had the chance to do any meetups, but I encourage you to attend them. I encourage you to organize them. A little bit later, like a few minutes or so, I don't know, we'll talk about helping you guys out with that.
I just want to say we got each other, right? You guys all got this, and you guys help us get this, so thank you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about more practical stuff. So Geffen, I'm going to put you on the spot. You okay with that?
Fun, so fun.
Did anyone go to the bowling fundraiser?
Oh my God.
Wasn't that like super awesome? It was like super awesome, right?
I did them both specifically so that you would
Oh
not
yes.
bring this
Do you know
up.
what Geffen's nickname is? Geffen's nickname's 38. Why is Geffen's nickname 38? Because that's what Geffen bowls.
Not at that. Never mind.
I'm just saying.
Thanks, Maggie.
No worries, love you. So Geffen, a lot of us are interested in creating some of these events, and sometimes you just kind of don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So can you briefly kind of just talk about sort of the thought process and how you sort of thought about the processes and the practical approach to sort of putting together an event?
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk a little bit about the first event that I put together, since I think mentioned that I did not know any Earpers, and like when I got into this, so my friend, who I'm gonna call out right now, my friend Declan, who's in the audience, who got me into Wynonna Earp. That was the only like Earper that I knew, but I knew when I wanted to. Basically, I had a lot of unknowns, but I knew personally, just from issues that I cared about, that I wanted my first event to be somehow related, if possible, to addressing homelessness in Los Angeles, because and that's where I'm from, and Los Angeles has the second largest homeless population in the country. So I just knew that, there's different ways to figure out how you want to choose your event, but that was just I went kind of by an issue that I wanted to address. And I did know about some organizations, and there was one that I was really interested in. It's called Shower of Hope, and they provide free mobile showers all around in different locations in Los Angeles. But I didn't know if this would be a good event for a group. I didn't know if 2 people would show up, if nobody would show up, or if 20 people would show up, because what I've learned, you never know what to expect with Earpers and everything like that, and in like a good way. And also this was going to be the first event. So I went and volunteered and through the Shower of Hope just on my own, just to kind of gauge it. And realized that it probably wasn't going to be the right fit for the first event, because if there were more people showing up, there wouldn't be enough for everybody to contribute to. But what I did do, and what I love about volunteering, is that you do get to kind of meet different people who are interested in the same things and maybe volunteer with other organizations. So I spoke to a few people and found out about another really great organization called LA on Cloud 9. They do a lot of street outreach in LA, and they also have this thing called a homeless services picnic, and the upcoming one was going to be a Halloween. It was in October, so it was going to be a Halloween-themed one. And I thought that this was going to be a great fit because there were a lot of different activities, so it wouldn't matter if it was only one person or several. People could organize clothes, give out food. There was going to be like a crafts area. So I knew that kind of logistically would fit. And then also there was an aspect of being able to donate money or donate hygiene supplies. And so that I knew that people who maybe couldn't actually physically go to the event could still participate in some way. So that's how I chose it. I created, in terms of like just trying to promote it, I had just created like a Gmail account and Twitter account, and used, obviously I didn't know anybody, so I had to, the other thing that's great about the Earper community is that they really want everybody to be well connected, so I just sort of like used the hashtags and like got in touch with Earp It Forward, and also just like kind of signal boosted it through other accounts, and managed to, and just periodically would do that leading up to the event. And then the other great thing that came up, which was sort of to me like my first personal experience with like Earper generosity, was finding out from Kristen and Sarah that I could contact Beyond Clexa to, and that they provide, so the shirts, we have examples from like all different, so what's that one from?
Earpapalooza.
So that's Earpapalooza. This is like the classic.
This is Bayhat. This is the one you get if you do a meetup.
So I was wearing a few days, I think to the bowling event, I was wearing the one that has LA Earpers on the back. This is the one that we gave out.
I've actually only
bowling
seen
event.
her in Earp Your Community shirts.
What?
I just wanted to let you know.
That you've only seen me.
Yeah.
They've become like my uniform at
You too,
cons.
Sarah.
Like that's all I wear.
I have a lot of Earp Your Community shirts, that's for sure. But that was sort of.
How do I get one?
Good question. I think we have a few at the end that we're going to throw out into the audience.
New England Earper ones.
Okay. Well, yeah. So got a little sidetracked, but yeah. So that was like my first experience of like meeting up with Earpers and getting those shirts from them to have at the event was kind of signaled to me what my experience with Earpers would be like, which is that they're really cool and generous, and we ended up having like a 30-minute conversation when I met up with them. So, but yeah, so in terms of just like at the event, I made sure to like let everybody know. So the thing is that, and something to kind of keep in mind, is that multiple, like, whether or not a bunch of people sign up, things are going to change and happen. And, you know, of course, some people at the last minute aren't able to go. So that is something that happened. It was me and my friend, and I think 3 other people were able to go. And another thing that you can do to sort of encourage people to go is I went to, shortly before I got the chance to go to like an Earper meetup and met one person who did end up attending and another person who ended up donating to it. So that was sort of like another way to, even though I was really just getting started in the fandom, just trying to like make those connections and talk more about the event. So I, you know, brought the donations to MacArthur Park in LA, where where the homeless services picnic was being held, and they, as well as like snacks and water bottles for everybody, and we had a great time. And everybody like worked really hard and really got along. None of us knew each other, and we all grabbed lunch after. I made sure to take group photos, and then that was something. That was something that I definitely wanted to like be able to document and like post later, to kind of also tell, you know, other people who maybe couldn't show up or who maybe were interested but were a little nervous, like, hey, you know, this is like an enjoyable thing. So definitely even though there were so many unknowns going into it and maybe things that fell through at the last moment, like people unable to show up or unknown factors, it ended up being like a really incredible first experience creating an event. So don't be scared to kind of just get started in it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There's always a reason you can't, but there's more reasons why you should.
Remember, we said we don't say no anymore, right? We say yes. But it's actually pretty amazing, Geffen, because it's like you do this great thing for the community, and then you actually build a new community while you guys do this. So it's like you're almost doing double benefit, right? Because you're doing it for, well, almost triple, right? For yourself, for the folks who are actually volunteering at the event that you've sort of grouped together, and then actually for the folks that you're helping out. So it's actually a really cool way of sort of paying it forward. So what's the turnout like at these things?
I gotta sign this question because it's funny because I am the founder of Earp It Forward, but I've only had 2 events.
Idea person.
What?
Idea person.
Yeah.
Yes, idea person. I'm an entrepreneur, scattered-brained. I've had 2 events. My first was a beach cleanup, actually on International Coastal Cleanup Day.
Your homework assignment, don't forget about it.
Yes, don't forget. I had 12 people show up for that. It was a good turnout. But due to various factors, aka New England weather in mid-January, only one person showed up, and that one person was me. But it was a service day for Martin Luther King Day, so I was involved with like making Valentine cards, helped decorating, putting together blankets for a homeless shelter. So despite turnout isn't everything. The whole thing, the success is like the experience. Knowing that you're making a difference, meeting people, it's creating a community. That's how we really measure success.
Yeah. I should actually say, so from the beginning, Kristen always had it in her mind that this was about the experience for people. And it's like, yeah, sure. But I was really focused on the power of the fandom. And that's still something I care about, like what we can actually do and for the world. But once we started Earp Your Community, we started getting tagged in a lot of stuff for Start the Wave. And everything we got tagged in talked about what they were doing, but more it talked about the impact it had on them, how it's changed them as people, how it's changed their relationship to the world, made them feel more empowered, more confident. And that really impacted how I thought about success for Earp Your Community. I realized that, turnout is great. It's great. I've had big events, I've had small events, I've had, all sorts of different sizes. But what matters, what success looks like, is what's the experience you're creating for the people that do show up, even if it's just yourself. That's what matters. And kind of seeing that what was possible through Start the Wave made me want that for Earp Your Community. Like I want us to be able to give back and do good, but more so I want everybody in this community to feel the benefits of being a part of the community, your community, and giving back and feel that empowerment. I want to impact your lives, and I want you to impact each other's lives, and that's how you judge success, not by turnout.
I think we have no more time for questions, at least for the formal questions. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? Because I would love to give away this Wynonna Earp swag. I'm going to go in the middle there. And
So I'm the co-founder of the Columbus and Central Ohio Earper page that we just started a couple weeks ago. We're wanting to do a meetup/EYC. What's the best way you guys have found scheduling-wise? Because I work as a corrections officer for the state, so I barely have any time.
I just have to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
But like I said, I'm a corrections officer for the state of Ohio, and I helped co-found the Ohio Earper page. But how do you guys get your normal 9-to-5 jobs to work with your meetups and stuff? Because I work weekends, so I can't do that. But my other co-founder, Becca Amato, I know she's going to do a real good job about helping with that stuff. So
Thank you for asking the question that was on my list that we didn't get to. I
So
really
true. Just
appreciate
thinking
it.
that. Yeah.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. I'll slip you a 20 later.
Cool.
For me, working the 9-to-5 job, trying to find the time for it. What's helpful is that I already know of like an organization who has their schedule like way in advance, so I can kind of look at the days. I mean, sometimes I just kind of pick a day that works for me and hope that it works for other people. But there's other ways of doing that, obviously, like a doodle poll, checking in and seeing when people are available, Google Forms, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'd also add, so I set some boundaries. Like my group knows I'm not going to do more than like one event every other month because that's too much. But to some extent, I talk to them. I might gauge like, hey, and this is after I've established a group. You might not be able to do that at first. What times generally work for you? But ultimately, it comes down to what works for me, and then trying to make it accommodate. Like, do you need a ride or whatever? But I'd also just remember that like sometimes we get caught up in how much we can do. And so like you might have this idea for like a really big event and you don't have time for it. Do something small first. Maybe do something that's going to be like an hour in the park. And that's a big deal too. And I think we shouldn't overlook the little things we do. So that helps kind of, it gets you started. And once you get started, I promise you're going to find ways to do more because you're going to want to. I think that if you're the organizer, you have to base it on what you can do first, because it's really important for you to be there, or for your co-organizer to be there, for somebody, because you need to be there to create an experience for people. You need to be there to welcome them. So think more about what works for you, and then you can accommodate. You can kind of shift it to accommodate other people.
So the two events that I've had, they're based off of days. Sometimes I can get super overwhelmed. So one of the easiest ways to get started on a project is there's a number of different service days, and holidays are always really good. And the good thing about holidays is there's typically so many opportunities in communities, whether it's Halloween or Christmas or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving. There's so much stuff. Christmas, there's a lot too. Hanukkah too. Kind of using those days that might typically be days off for people is one of the ways that makes it really a little bit easier for me from both a personal perspective Google Forms and doodle polls have been the Earp It Forward, Earp Your Community, amazing tools.
I like how you're looking at me about the doodle polls.
Geffen is our doodle poll person.
That's my job. Yeah.
Skype and Doodle.
Yep.
I just want to say one thing. I totally agree with Kristen. Doodle polls and finding out, but don't let that overwhelm you, because for me, you're never going to be able to accommodate everybody.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Doodle polls and that, they're for getting a sense of the group that you're trying to get to, but you can't. You just have to make a decision. Just decide and go, because if you spend too much time worrying about making sure it works for everybody, you're going to get paralyzed and not do anything.
More or less, yes, yes, less, no. Sorry, couldn't say that in one word. Any other questions?
Oh,
Let's go. Jill, pick somebody. Jill, you're my wife. Pick somebody. Done. And give them a prize, please.
Sorry, we're going over time, so this is the last question, please.
Okay.
I was just curious.
Jill,
As
first question. Right?
First question.
First questions, you got one, dude.
Oh,
Never mind.
I was just curious, as the leaders of different groups, do you rely on other members of your groups to organize different events also, or do they just come up
I think
with
I paid the
ideas?
audience.
We rely on each other a lot. Not necessarily to organize our local events, but I go to Kristen, like Kristen's made graphics for me. I go to Geffen. I stole Geffen's idea about having a Twitter page. I didn't have one before. So we rely on each other. We DM each other for support. We're always here to support you guys too. So if you have an event you want and you're like, I don't even know how to get started, come find the Earp. We have a webpage now, so you can Twitter, webpage, email, whatever. We'll help you. I mean, that's what Earpers do. They help each other. And if you don't know what to do, or if I don't know what to do, I'll reach out to Geffen and she'll know what to do.
I've said this before. These people are disgustingly good. I mean, seriously, like disgustingly good. So if you just want to reach out, DM, chat, whatever, this one's up all night, all day. I don't even know how she does it, but she's like texting me all night. I'm like, dude, I'm like not awake.
this is why I have friends in Australia.
But then again, I actually am awake. So what am I saying? But anyway, thank you very much for attending the panel. We really enjoyed chatting with you guys. If you have questions, let us know. Come up and chat with us after.